everyone, this is Lulu, and in this video we'll be painting this super colorful and festive Big Blooms Platter. Grab all your supplies and let's get started. With a pencil, sketch large and medium flowers all around the platter. Create some flowers with 5 petals and some with 4. Fill in the whole platter with as many flowers as you can fit. Make sure that you have varying sizes and have fun with it. Go big. Once you have sketched the majority of your flowers and you have a better idea on the space you're working with, feel free to add some leaves and some swirls to fill in the remaining space. Remember that the pencil marks will disappear after the piece is fired, so don't worry about making any mistakes. I forgot to do while recording was sand down or brush away some of the graphite that's left over from the pencil. So grab a dry brush or your hand and pass it through the bisque to ensure that all of our paint sticks straight to the bisque and the paint doesn't move because of the graphite. Now let's begin painting our flowers. So we're going to be using that medium round brush and the color Tweety Bird to begin. I'm going to do 1 to 2 coats of Tweety Bird on my petals or my flowers. Keep in mind I'm doing 2 flowers of each color, 2 to 3 depending on what the feel is. So feel free to adjust here. If you wanted to add more yellow flowers, you're more than welcome to do so. If you wanted to add more of another color, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Right now I kind of planned out where my flowers or what colors my flowers are going to be. So I used my pencil and I marked on which color I wanted to put where. So you'll see some of my flowers have blue or B for blue, O for orange, that kind of thing. And this is just for me to map out how everything's gonna look before I go in to start painting. I'm also doing 2 coats of every color, so you'll see that I'll paint 1 coat, move on to the next flower. So in the meantime, I'm letting that first flower dry, so that way when it comes time to do its second coat, it is dry to the touch. So the next color I'll be using is called In the Pink. I'm going to be doing 2 coats of that color with that same round brush, but remember to clean your brush really well before continuing on. Stated earlier, feel free to add however many flowers of however many colors you'd like to have. Here I noticed that I wanted an extra yellow. I had one that I hadn't labeled, so I figured yellow is my favorite color, so I'm going to make that one yellow. So feel free to take any creative risks like that. It'll all work out in your favor. I'm going to be using the round brush again to paint 2 more flowers with 2 coats of orange peel. Remember to rinse your brush between each color change to ensure that all the colors come out bright and they don't mix in with one another. Next, I'm going to rinse off my brown brush and I'm going to be using it to paint 2 more flowers with the color Blue Ice. I'm doing 2 coats just as I have been in every other flower because I want to make sure that my paint comes out solid and not transparent. I'm going to be using the color Jumpin' Jelly to paint the last bit of flowers I have left on my platter. Keep in mind I'm also doing 2 coats of this color, and also note that you can change this purple to another purple. I think I have one sample that uses Bouncing Berry and then this one uses Jumpin' Jelly, and it doesn't really matter which purple you choose. I just like them both, so sometimes I like to interchange depending on the mood or depending on what project I'm working on. So feel free to take some creative risks in this as well, and you can change up some of the flower colors if that's what you decide. Make it your own. Next, I'm going to be using my small round brush to paint all the leaves around the platter with about 2 coats of Lime Ricky. So Lime Ricky is going to be that really nice mellow green, and remember, when it comes to 2 coats, let everything dry and then go over everything once more to ensure that everything comes out solid and it looks great. With the pencil, I'm going to be sketching the little accents on the flowers. So pretty much just creating kind of like squiggly lines on their insides to separate the petals. And I'm also trying to ensure that I know which part is going to be the center, so that way I know where my design is going to be later on. Keep in mind that I'm just using my pencil lightly to sketch on top of the flowers. And remember, it's not too hard. I'm not trying to scrape off any paint. I'm just trying to make sure that I have a nice template to work off of. So you're more than welcome to take your time and work on the flowers that are the driest first and then move on from there. Here I'm using my dry brush to get some of the graphite off of my surfaces, so that way the paint sticks as best as possible. Alrighty, so next we're going to be adding accents to all of our flowers using an equivalent color. So for all my yellow flowers, I am using a Water Yolk Funwriter, and this color is just this really bright and yolky yellow, and I'm going to be using it to paint all those little accents on the petals. So their outlines, some details on their insides, and I'm also doing a little bit of cluster dots on the center of each flower to give it a bit of a fun accent as we're going. So keep in mind that my Funwriter pin is next to my Funwriter, so that way if it gets clogged, I can get it in there and unclog it, and have fun with this. Kind of make it all whimsical, or however it comes out, you know, have fun with every part of it. None of it has to be perfect or anything like that. That's one of the greatest things about this project. It's one of my favorite things. You get to kind of get a fun use out of the Funwriters, and you also get to play with their weight and their thickness. So if you see on the flower to the left here of the yellow one, I have a dark or a thicker outline than all the other lines inside. So like the little swirlies inside are a little thinner, and the outline itself is a little bit thicker. So feel free to have fun with this, and remember to work on the driest areas first and then move on to the areas that are wetter last, allowing them to dry. Here's a few tips on using the Funwriter bottle. Be aware on how you're holding the bottle, and for thinner lines, hold at a diagonal angle so the tip is sitting right on top of the surface. Move quickly, and if the paint stops flowing, add a few dots to create a whimsical continuation to the line. If you're doing thicker lines, hold the Funwriter perpendicular to the pottery and squeeze a little bit harder. Using the red Funwriter, you could use Rockin' Red or Red Blaze. I believe I'm using Rockin' Red in this one, but you're more than welcome to use whichever. And this is just the same thing over again, but now with a different color. So as you see, the lines on the outside of the flower are a little bit thicker, and this is by design. So what I'm doing here is I'm just pressing my Funwriter a little harder than I was when I did the little swirlies on the inside of the flower, because I want these lines to be a little bit thicker. Keep in mind that the Funwriter pin is nearby, just in case if I do get any clogs, I can unclog it right away and not let it affect my painting. Right now I'm going to move on to the next flower. So I'm going to be using the color Orange Crush in a Funwriter bottle, and I'm going to be painting the same designs or the same little accents on the orange flowers with this Funwriter. While the paint is still wet, I will go through and add a little bit more weight to my thicker lines. And this is just an addition to the line that's already there. This is just to make it a little bit thicker so it stands out from the center line a little bit more. Remember that using the Funwriter is the equivalent of 3 coats, but you don't actually have to do 3 coats. So the first time you go around, the color will be vibrant and bright, just as if you had gone through it 3 times. But we will not be doing that at all. We're just going to go through one time, make sure that our lines are nice. Remember, if there's any stops, add a few dots and keep going. Next, I'm going to be using the Blue Heaven Funwriter to add accents to the blue flowers. Remember that if you change colors at any point, feel free to change the Funwriter bottle as well. I would choose a color that's kind of the same as the color you chose for the flower. Just as long as it's a little bit of a brighter or darker version, it'll work just fine. Next, I'll be using the color Winona on the Funwriter bottle to paint the remaining flowers accents with that purple color. So now I'm going to be using the Funwriter bottle with Happy Go Lucky to paint all the leaves and paint all the little swirlies around my platter. So keep in mind, I'm just doing the leaves outlines. I'm just doing a really nice thick line. So instead of thinning out or anything like that, I'm just going thick, heavy-handed. I kind of pass through twice just to ensure that I get a really nice thickness. And be aware that I'm constantly pressing the center of my bottle to ensure that there's a nice flow going. Keep that Funwriter pin nearby just in case you get any clogs or anything like that. And if your bottle spits at any point, just make sure to put the pin back in there, shake that really well. That just means that it got a little bit of paint inside and it needs to be cleared out before you can continue on. I'm all done with my leaves, so I'm going to go in around and I'm going to start adding some dots with my fun writer, and I'm going to be working on the little swirls. Keep in mind that the swirls can be as whimsical as you like. Do not feel like you have to make them look perfect, because that's not the point of these little accents at all. They're just supposed to look whimsical, kind of funny and funky and kind of all over the place. So feel free to let your imagination run wild and do the best you can with them. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to look anything like mine. Just as long as you make them thick and make them stand out, you'll be doing just fine. So next, I allowed my piece to dry for a couple of minutes to ensure that everything, at least all the flowers, had dried to the touch. Now I'm going to be using a black lab fun writer to go over all the little details and paint any other accents that I'm going to paint. As you see, I'm only doing thinner lines in this because I do want those lines that are underneath to stand out as well. I don't want to overpower them. So I'm holding my fun writer bottle at an angle. I'm making sure that I'm squeezing lightly, but that I'm also working fast to ensure that the paint doesn't just sit in one place. Remember, if the bottle spits on you or if it freaks out, just give it a couple minutes, clean out that tip, shake that bottle up, and kind of accept that there will be little hiccups here and there. But what I like to do with those is I like to add a couple dots or make it look kind of like I planned on that to happen, and it totally adds a different level to your piece. It looks more hand painted than something a machine made. So take all those little accidents and enjoy them, because that makes that piece unique and it makes it your creation. One thing I forgot to mention too is the reason I have my sponge right there sitting right next to me is because it helps me clean out the tip of my fun writer. So if you're able to have a sponge or a paper or a piece of paper towel or something like that you can just clean off the tip every so often, feel free to do that. That just means that less paint will be dragged into your fun writer tip, so it means less spits, less dirty parts and things like that, less dragging of the paint in general. So try to maintain that tip clean. So you'll see that all the colors I've used are already showing on top of my sponge, and this is just the thing I do out of habit. I just immediately have a sponge nearby, or I typically also use the back of my left hand, so it's just whatever I have handy, whatever I have near. So make sure to have something nearby that you can use to clean your tip, just to make sure that you're working through all of this to you're doing all this work, right? You want it to look good, so do whatever you can to maintain your supplies clean, and it'll be easier in the long run. It'll make the whole project go on quicker, on smoother, and you will have really nice clean lines the whole way through. Using black to detail is one of my favorite things, just because it makes all the other colors stand out really nicely. It gives it a really nice final touch to everything. So I ensure that everything's dry before I do any outlining and any detailing. I just want to make sure that I don't mess with anything I just done. So you see everything here is super dry. You can already tell that the black is drying. It's becoming paler, looking more gray. And remember that all the colors will brighten up. So right now this is just their version unfired. So everything's kind of pastel looking, but you can imagine once everything is fired, it'll look so amazing, and having the black there to outline it all will give it even more dimension. Next, I'm going to be using the back of a pencil eraser, or you can also use Q-tips, and I'm going to be painting dots on the brim of the platter. Keep in mind that it just depends on whatever you feel more comfortable with. Since this platter does have a sharp edge to it, like a drop off at the end of the platter, it's good to have Q-tips just because it helps you to get both sides, the top and the side of the brim. So I started off with the pencil eraser, but then I changed my mind. I wanted something that allowed me a little bit more fluidity, more control. So I'm going on to using the Q-tips, and all I'm doing is just dipping my Q-tip into paint and then painting a couple dots, going back, dipping it again, and keep going until the whole rim's painted. And for the dots, I'm just using Black Lab paint. Right, so don't forget to write your name on the bottom of the platter using that Black Lab Fun Writer or a detail brush. Here is a close-up of the platter we painted in this video. Thank you so much for painting with me today. Have a great day and bye-bye.